okay? And this is understanding prop firms, and we're going to be setting up risk management plans and explaining why I trade the way I do and why I aim for the risk to reward I do, why the results that I look at are the way they are. All right. Because I've noticed, some people say there's not enough executions, there's not enough da da da. Why is the risk to reward so small? And all of that is completely justifiable. It just needs, I understand that perspective, but there's a reason why. There's always a reason for everything, right? And I think that obviously, like I mentioned before, what you see is executions. You don't see the risk management behind these executions. So I'm going to dive into how I leverage prop firms, how everyone should be leveraging prop firms, and just a breakdown of what they are. I know some people aren't entirely familiar with what they are, okay? So days like today, don't worry, I've got this pulled up on my other screen. If there's a trade, I'm gonna call it out and we're gonna switch. But I really want this to be clear, and over the next couple of days, couple of weeks, when we don't have any trading opportunities, we're going to master a lot of the stuff, such as position sizing. This is honestly more important than a singular trade. I'm going to be so honest. Okay. Please, please, please pay attention to this very, very closely. Super, super important stuff. Okay. So let's dive into understanding prop firms today. Let me pull this over here. Okay. So we're going to be breaking down why prop firms are useful and what they are. Okay. So I'm not going to go into specific examples of like what prop firms to use. I'll cover that a little bit later. But we need to understand what prop firms are and how they're meant to be used with trading, right? And how, and some issues that I've seen some people cross within prop firms. So we're going to be covering that, right? So first of all, we have to understand that the key takeaway of prop firms is that they're leverage. That's all they are. All it is as a retail trader is that it allows us to have access to higher trading leverage and higher capital as a retail investor. Not all of us have a couple grand to toss into brokerage accounts to play with, right? Not all of us have, you know, accounts that can trade 3 mini contracts on a futures brokerage. We don't have access to that capital as retail traders or people looking to get into investing. Maybe it's not the most realistic thing, right? Prop firms allow us to step into that realm at a relatively cheap cost. Okay. With that being said, it's like shiny object syndrome. What I see, or actually, I'll cover that a little bit later. Right. We need to understand the rules of these prop firms. And I'm going to be using the example based off of the 50K account rules for Top Step. This is pretty much industry standard if you trade futures accounts. But like with max drawdown and profit target, I'm going to be using these examples. Okay. So let's use the 50K account rule for a Top Step, right? The max drawdown is $2,000 for an evaluation, and for your XFA, meaning if you lose $2,000, your account's gone. Boom, done. And to pass an account, you need $3,000 in profit. Okay, so how do we actually manage positions based on your max drawdown? The whole key takeaway is max drawdown. That's how much you can lose. So don't leverage your account like it's a 50K account. It's not. It's technically a 2K account. That's how much leverage, or that's how much room you have to work with. So what does that look like? So as you guys are familiar with, what I usually trade for these AM session calls is a relatively high win rate at about 75 to 80% win rate, but the AM session calls, they only get about one risk to reward, maybe 1 to 1.5, the occasional 2. I haven't seen a 2 risk to reward using a CISD since, before last week in like a month or something, right? So what does that look like? Well, you have to understand win rate and risk to reward. These things are tied together. The higher the win rate, the lower the risk to reward, and vice versa. The lower the risk to reward, the higher win rate you're going to have. Obviously, there's some things you want to have the system that balances these out the best, right? But how does this correlate to our max drawdown ratio? Okay, always when you're trading prop firms, think in terms of drawdown ratio, right? So when we're trading a high win rate, why is that significant? Well, the higher win rate we have, we are looking in terms of what are the chances we're going to lose a consecutive amount of trades in a row to hit this drawdown, right? So for the example of how we're trading, and you looking back at the Google Doc and obviously the data we have for trading these AM sessions and the callouts and whatnot for the 3-step model, what you'll see is about a 75, between 75 and 80% win rate. Okay. When you're trading at that high of a win rate, you can afford to risk higher on your positions due to the win rate being high enough where you're not going to have a lot of consecutive losses. Looking back at the data, we actually, in the entire 4 months of Traders Compound, I believe we've only had, I don't think we've had any back-to-back losses, maybe one set. I'll have to double check. Okay. How is that relative to what max drawdown stands for? Why is that significant? Well, oh wait, also, let me check. I said there might be a setup on NQ. No. Okay. Sorry, like I said, I'm always looking at that for executions. But how is that relative? Well, if we're trading that and we're not going to hit, or we're less likely to have consecutive losses hitting our max drawdown, we can risk up, right? Your win rate is directly tied to how much you can risk for your max drawdown. So when trading these AM session calls, let's look at what the data would look like to pass an account or to get a payout, like a relatively decent payout. Well, trading at about a 1-to-1 risk to reward, you need about 4.75 RR without losing 3 risk to reward. Okay, so that translates to 1 RR being $650, right? And you can't lose 3 of those trades in a row. So even just looking at that from a standpoint and putting that into perspective of the frequency of trades and saying maybe, looking at this like, well, that's not a lot of risk to reward per month. We're not necessarily generating a lot of risk to reward. You have to define what your risk is for that to make sense, right? We'll talk about this a little bit later, but a measly 4 to 5 risk to reward, which is very, very standard return for the model that I trade when we talk about scaling and pairing proper risk with that generates incredible returns, right? But why is this the way it is? Well, again, it's based around max drawdown. Look at the statistics. We haven't once even had the opportunity to go into enough drawdown because of the win rate and risk paired with each other, right? So we haven't even had an opportunity through the callouts that have been offered to lose an account if you're risking $650 um, per standard trade, right? So how does that look like risk to reward and like payout wise, right? So again, a lot of us say, well, 4 to 5 RR, maybe not a lot. Well, let's put that in terms of, again, we're using proper risk according to the win rate that we are trading, right? So we're risking heavily because we understand our higher win rate is going to allow us to not come close to this max drawdown. We can risk, a lot because we're not going to lose 3 trades in a row very frequently, right? It's possible, absolutely, but we can afford to take that chance because of the quality of the setups and the win rate we're getting. Even if it's a small risk to reward, we can risk up, right? So what does that look like at one payout? All right, so let's use the same exact return of about 4.75 risk to reward or 3K in profit using a $650 risk per execution. After you hit this 4.75R, that's a measly 4 to 5 risk to reward. That'll generate you about 1.5K on one account. This is the main issue I see with students trading prop firms is they are psychologically chasing very, very large payouts and very, very large returns with very low drawdown per one account, right? So let's use the same example here. We're using max drawdown of 2K. We're still, we can even risk up. Oops. We can even risk up, right? We're trading like $1,000, right? Because we want to make on this prop firm or on this XFA, we want to have an account balance of $6,000 to $7,000. You're technically trying to triple a $2,000 drawdown very quickly. That is a disaster. Okay, you're allowing yourself to put your drawdown in danger. That's how I look at these prop firms. It's all based around drawdown, right? If you're trying to trade, 1K per execution, you quite literally can only afford to lose 2 trades in a row before this max drawdown is hit and your accounts are gone. So when we're chasing $10,000 worth of profit, even $6,000, $7,000 in even a month is a little bit crazy, right? On 150K account, some of us, I see people trying to hit that in a week. Your drawdown is in complete jeopardy. That is insane. That is not going to be consistent overall. This is a disaster. That is what I see a lot of people trying to get out of prop firms. The goal with prop firms is never to try and capitalize on these low drawdown accounts and flip them to those insane profits. It's to scale. Okay. True leverage with prop firm trading comes from copy trading. You guys hear me talk about copy trading all the time. The reason copy trading is so powerful is because literally nothing changes with your trading. You just get more leverage. Look at the comparison between trading one funded account payout versus trading five. It's literally a 5x for the same exact trading that you're doing. Same exact executions get copied over to other accounts. Your 1.5K has turned into 7.5 grand. So when we're looking at risk to reward returns, a lot of us are thinking in terms of we're trying to trade one account only, and then the psychological number of chasing large capital on this one account completely messes us up. The goal is not for us to, we don't even care about one account. One prop firm account won't change your life. No pressure on one account. It's not going to make or break what being a trader is going to, or your outcome as a trader is going to look like, because it's really insignificant. Okay, sure, 1,500 bucks, cool. Does that change our life at all? No. What changes our life is being able to trade consistently enough to scale. Okay, how do we get there? With process and system. You might think, Ryan, how do you even figure out what your win rate is? How do I know how to size, right? How do I size based on win rate? I don't even have that. Well, let's take a look, right? Let me change my live trade setups. Where is it? You guys want to understand what data looks like and how we can understand that? Look at this section here. Look at the AIO indicator. Okay, for me personally, trading my three-step distribution model, this is over a year worth of live called out executions. That is how I determine a win rate, is because I have process. Some of us don't even get to worry about win rate because we have no process behind executions. We're spamming trades. We're letting emotions take control. Just da 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 da. We're throwing random, for lack of words, random shit at the charts, right? We don't even get to care about win rate or position sizing because we don't have this. Follow the AIO, okay? The AIO is actually raw. Oh wait, I didn't change my screen. Oops. Worry about win rate because we have no process in the first place. Look at the raw data. It's not even manually collected. It is based off of I don't know how to explain it properly, the instructions of the code, right? Excuse my, I'm pretty ignorant with that stuff. Sal's the pro, right? But that is actual data. That is a process or a system, right? That is how we are going. Why we even care about win rate? Why we even care about position sizing? Okay, so let's take a step back and let's look at the overall trader. The very first step is a process or a system. Some of us dive into trading or trying to scale these evals. Some of us, like I said, we even try to copy trade accounts before we even have this mastered. As traders, we love to skip steps to chase dollar signs. Okay? If none of these things fall in place, the money is not going to come. All right. So, lucky for you guys, you have a lot of great tools at your disposal, right? One of the reasons I wanted to talk about this so heavily is because on these live calls and using the AIO, you have this process, right? And I understand for some VIP students or for some of us trading independently, trying to learn this and become independent without the help of these live calls and doing it alone, this process or system is still being developed, right? And of course, position sizing and the system go hand in hand, but there's a lot of process here. So what I'm starting to notice is that we are missing understanding risk management and position sizing tied to this process and how it's related to trader overall. Okay. So again, let's take a look at how I personally have traded my accounts over, using these AM session calls. On a account with $2,000 of drawdown, I risk about $650 to $700. It's never going to be perfect, right? And of course, we take into account break evens. And if you're on Apex, you get a little bit more drawdown, but there's trailing drawdown, right? So obviously, this is like hypothetical best case scenario. I know it's not realistic or 100% realistic, right? But what I do is I trade about $650 to $750 per execution. Okay, that is my risk for these AM session calls. I take one loss or one win per day. This is another thing that ties into position sizing, is my risk guidelines. I follow these religiously. A lot of us don't even have risk guidelines, okay? So again, I know this seems like a lot, but this is why trading is so hard because we quite literally have to take all of this into account and have all of this fall in place, or else everything could fall apart, right? So I risk $650 to $700 per day when I'm trading with CISDs and um, lower risk executions at this higher win rate, right? And if I take one loss per day, I am done. The worst that I can do is I can lose $650 on the day, right, per account. So, what does that look like? And how does that differ from a lot of traders? Is I have a floor for myself. I say this probably at least once a week. I really hope you guys are getting upset at me for hearing this, right? You have to give yourself a floor, especially with such tight drawdown rules trading funded accounts. Again, you guys have such small leverage on these accounts, like 2,000 bucks if you're trading a 50K. That's not a lot. So again, for some of us chasing a psychological number saying, I need more, I need more, I need more, what we could be doing is we could be over leveraging. So one risk to reward, again, is very subjective. What is one risk to reward to you guys? It's different for everyone. The reason I'm talking about this is to clear up what my risk is. 650 bucks. Okay? Some of you guys, A, don't even calculate your position sizing or don't know how. This risk to reward completely screws up all of what we've talked about if you don't even calculate your position sizing. So keep that in mind. If you don't calculate position sizing, this all gets screwed, right? But some of us over leverage. We full port. What happens when we full port? Everything's gone. Everything is gone. So let's put this into perspective. Let's look at. Thought I risked. Yeah, I risked up. Let's take a look at last week, right? Last week we took a win for 2.5 risk to reward on Monday. I was a little bit lower on that, and then 2R on Wednesday, right? It was Wednesday or Thursday. I forgot. And then on Friday we lost. What does this look like without having a risk management plan? How does your account differ if you don't have this? Well, if you don't even have a floor, if you don't have a guarantee for what you can give yourself, then you are going to screw yourself. The 4 risk that you earn throughout the week, gone because you don't have a guarantee. I told you guys this week, I said the worst we can do after those 2 wins is be up 3 risk or 3 RR because I have a guarantee. If you don't give yourself that guarantee, it's all for nothing. There's going to be no consistency, right? So your one losing day with improper risk management or not consistent risk management over leveraging completely defeats the entire purpose of all of this. Okay? I heard some people under risk after a fat win. That's fine. But again, when we're taking a fat win, is that fat win because we over leveraged? How about sizing for IFEGs? I'm just using this as like hypothetical in case of or in terms of when I trade 1Rs. When we trade soft stops and low win rate, then you size down, right? So when you're trading inversely, you're trading a low win rate with higher RR, you want to size down. Because of course a lower win rate means you're going to take on more drawdown, threatening your max drawdown. You don't want to risk the same when you're going to lose more. Risk down. Okay. Yeah, so Jesse, you pass after the first account for futures firms, right? But where was I? Yeah, this is the downfall of 90% of traders. This really is what it is, right? Is over leveraging and not having a daily loss limit. I've seen $8,000 portfolios gone, right? On Top Step, what it takes is you need 5 winning days of $150 or more now to get a payout of 50% of your balance. I see people get 4 winning days and they build their account up through over leveraging and they get to like six to 10,000 bucks, and then on the last day it's gone because they don't have a daily loss limit. Silly, right? But you have to have these things in place. You have to absolutely have all for nothing. Okay. Ryan, if you get a $150 minimum winning day, does it have anything to say if it is in drawdown or not? Well, it's like on your calendar. What's the process you followed to have five? So what I did, I started messing around with Top Step early in the program just because I wanted to track some eval results. Um, I passed one originally, and then I did three, and then I scaled up to five. So I don't do them one by one, but they all use the same exact risk until I eventually got five, right? Let's say I'm in drawdown and I get a $150 winning day. Will that count? Yeah, it will. It will. It'll count as a winning day, right? But again, let's look at what this process looks like. And I want you all to identify where you are as a trader based on this little flowchart thing here, the path to becoming a trader. Where are we? Okay. If we're still in the process of learning, right? Maybe we're a VIP student, we're in the process, right? Maybe we're learning position sizing that's tied into it, right? Maybe we join these AM session calls because we don't care about ICT concepts and all the gibberish that I say. We just want to follow the system. What does our position sizing look like? How do we follow the executions that I call out? What does that look like, right? So yeah, I'm not looking to take longs because there's no draw on liquidity. But what does that look like for you guys? I want you all to try and analyze where you're at through this screenshot, and I want you guys to let me know. How do you follow these executions? If you even trade prop firms, what's been your approach to them? Is there a misconception there? Okay. And with that being said, again, everything is a process. I want you guys to, and a lot of you are, some of you are experienced traders, some of you are brand new. And for those of you who are brand new, you understand this as a process. But for some of those of you who have just started, you got to understand it's a process, right? So you can't rush this, right? So you have to be content with trading an eval or having proof of concept, okay? Ask any one of my VIP students or any one of my previous students from my RR Trades program. I never tell anyone to scale into five Top Step accounts immediately. What we're doing here is you start off by getting a measly payout of 1K. That's not life changing, right? But what it shows is that you've dialed in process, you've dialed in position management, you haven't hit your drawdown limit, you passed the eval, you got a prop firm. That's all we're asking for, right? Maybe you do it twice. A lot of us are trying to skip past this. We immediately want big returns. We immediately want big payouts. We're completely neglecting process. I emphasize process because every single day, because that's everything. That's all we have in trading is data, right? You have to have this proof of concept. And once you have that down and once you nail that, then we scale, right? But we have to know where we are. Identify where you're at on this chart and see what the next step is, right? Or change what our current step is if something's not working and ask us, right? Again, say, I don't know what my position sizing is. I trade on a different account. Ryan, how should I manage my account? Maybe I don't trade the three step. Maybe I trade the AIO instead. How should I manage my risk? Ask, right? We're here to help. You guys aren't just going to be left in the dark in this. I'm not here to just tell you this and say good luck. Ask for it. But if changes have to be made, they have to be made. Failed three prop firms in a row, started trading properly to instead of right. And that's again, it's from a misunderstanding of what prop firms are used for. right? We're not trying to build up a $10,000, $20,000 bucks on a 50K. Now those higher account balances are possible if you trade higher leverage accounts with more drawdown, but keep in mind what that looks like, okay? So I wanted to discuss this because I want to educate you guys on what's realistic and how we can actually make the returns from these calls and make them I want them to be what's the word I'm looking for? Like I want the results to be impactful for those of you taking the trades, right? I don't want it to just be a win or a loss. I want it to be something that actually matters towards an account. And in order to have that happen, you have to understand position sizing. Okay. So I want all of us to reflect whether we trade AIO, whether we trade these morning session calls, maybe we do both, maybe we trade the, what's it called? Independently, we're a VIP student and we're learning where are we? What's our risk look like? Risk and executions, one cannot go without the other. Cannot. It's not possible, right? So that's what I have for you guys in terms of understanding prop firms. A couple of days, what I'm going to be doing is explaining different prop firms, right? What are the pros and cons of these prop firms? What are the costs of them? What are the returns? But I wanted to explain this and work this out because I want our results to show, right, what these morning sessions, what the AIO, what everything is generated, how using proper risk. Maybe it's something we need to change, but a measly, over the past, let me look at the data, but I think on average I've returned like 6R, between 6 and 8 risk to reward per month, except for November. I only made like 4R, right? For some of us, we're like, that's nothing. We don't trade at all. We don't have anything, da 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 da. What does that risk to reward look like when we define it, right? How do we properly manage that, right? And obviously, it's not exactly 4 to 5. I know that. I have break evens. It's never going to be perfect 4 to 5, but keep that in mind. But there we have it, right? These returns across one firm, that's 7.5 grand as a very, very realistic return just for understanding this risk plan and just for copying the trades. It's all it is. Okay. So I hope this was either an introduction or a little bit newer and maybe you don't understand um, what risk management is, having a plan, anything like that. Or B, for those of you who have kind of been trading these AM session calls based on a little bit of a different risk, I wanted to introduce how I trade it, how I get the results that I do. And it's following this. This is literally my risk plan, right? One win or one loss I take per day, and I risk about $650 if I'm trading a CISD. Now what we'll be doing is that with like inversion gaps, then I de-risk. So if we use soft stops, I'll try and clarify like when I'm de-risking, and I've said that for the past couple weeks, right? Like when it looks like. But yeah, that that's literally the plan I have. That's literally it. So another reason, like why do these returns, why are they very realistic and why I typically, obviously I wouldn't say I don't like to anymore, but why are these um, rules in place the way they are? It's all interpreted as like, am I threatening my max drawdown, right? So if I were to remove my rule that I can trade as many times that I want per day, my max drawdown is risked every single day. Quite literally, I could hit my max drawdown buffer every single day and my accounts would be gone, right? If I'm trading at a higher leverage or a higher risk to return, sure, there will be some months. Again, what I like to have is consistency, right? So let's gauge this in a different word. Let's like could be. So sure, let's imagine another world where I'm scaling up, right? Maybe I trade $1,000 and I only have two, maybe not even two trades. There are times where so my could be's are like a $5,000, my 7.5 would turn to 15K. Do we want could be's? No, right? Of course, everything with trading is it could be, and this 4 to 5 R isn't even guaranteed, right? It's all this is an average, but changing things up and working in a way where we're sorry, I read Connie's message, right? I don't understand even with no DLO when we are still over because there's no draw on liquidity. There's no session liquidity. Very simple, right? If when we form this gap at 10 a.m., once this closes, then we'll have a target. Okay. So I don't want could be's in my trading. Like I said, everything is technically a could be. This 4 to 5 R, it's an average of the compiled callouts and live executions taken, but this is very realistic. Very, very realistic, right? Is that this 4 to 5 RR is obtained, and it has been obtained. The reason I'm using this as an example is because this is real data from Traders Compound, is the 4 to 5 RR has been obtained without a $2,000 max loss limit, not once. So that's the other thing we have to look at is are we hitting 4 to 5 RR, but are we hitting 4 to 5 RR after we lose 3 risk to reward? Or can we consistently hit this without being in a drawdown? What does our equity curve look like, right? When back testing this through software, I believe it's a Sharpe ratio. Do we have a good Sharpe ratio, right? So manually collecting data, it's a little bit harder to get those exactly, but in layman's terms, you want a smooth equity curve, right? You don't ever sharp areas like this where your prop firms could be taken out, right? You want a smooth passage where your $2,000 max loss limit is never threatened. Okay. So that's what I have for you guys today. Let's take a look at NASDAQ. And again, let's just kind of cover what I see. So the reason I'm not interested in longs is we don't have a session, we don't have a draw on liquidity. Okay. All session highs are taken. We don't have any imbalances higher. I mean, I wouldn't be upset if some of you guys took the rebalance to like the 15-minute gap. I get that. Like, sure. But for me, you guys know, what did I just talk about? I just talked about my process and my system. I'm gonna religiously trade that. So for me, there's no external draw on liquidity. I'm not taking it, right? That's what it is on a day like today. Let's see, do we have a key level ST? Uh, we don't. So yeah, I mean, we don't even have the criteria that we've met. But I also wanted to mention this because breaking this down quite literally and showing a realistic number and breaking down the math behind it, once you understand that, it makes it a little bit easier to be patient. One of the things that helped me is when I really I really stepped back and I crunched numbers on what a realistic return was for me and how I could manage that. And when I realized I only needed 4 to 5 RR a month to cycle a payout or path, holy crap, that's enough, right? I was able to sit on my hands, pressure to execute every day because I knew what a target looked like. And I knew a target was completely realistic. I see some people trade the AIO, and of course, I'm assuming the risk is lower, but some people crush 4 risk to reward in a day. So what's not realistic about trading a 4 risk to reward with this risk management sizing, understanding that it's correlated to our max drawdown? And again, this isn't made up. This is quite literally derived from these live trading calls. These are the numbers behind the live trading calls, right? So that explains the risk. That explains why I trade the way I do, is because it's a low pressure environment. I realize that some people chase they think 4 to 5 RR a week. Again, we're chasing psychological numbers and barriers that we want to hit, right? I'm never chasing this. I'm waiting for this to come to me because I know it's a realistic number that and it has been hit every month thus far. So I hope it puts everything into perspective. It really should. And it should bring you guys confidence, right? So even when we're trading one account, right, we can't let psychology and large impact or large numbers and chasing money, right, impact what risk management looks like. Because then guess what? Again, if we skip steps, we're never going to even get one account on one small payout, if we're doing all of this incorrectly. Process, right? We get one small payout, and I'm very happy because I see a lot of people taking this step. Lots of people that I've been working with have been slowly taking this one account. Scaling is, to be honest, scaling is the easiest part. All you do is you click buy on 4 more accounts and you've scaled. So for those of you also maybe intimidated by this, being like, Ryan, holy shit, this is a lot, right? This tying in risk, the process, this looks like a lot. It's going to take too much time. Well, the fixes that can be made are very, very simple, right? So reflecting on today, look at your max drawdown for your prop firm account. If you guys are trading a fresh 50K, know what my risk is. Say, okay, Ryan trades with a $650 max loss limit. Congrats, we've just fixed our risk, our understanding of risk management, because now I'm going to trade the same risk that Ryan does, and I'm going to follow the same exact rules that Ryan does. That's not intimidating. We just changed that. That's exactly what I wanted to do, is I wanted to help visualize it. I understand sometimes I try and talk about it, and I love Sal because he's a lot more articulate and inspirational than I am. Lays out the entire plan. This lays out my roadblock and my journey. Hypotheticals, of course, like I said, never going to be exactly 4R, there's break even, da, you guys get it. But this is real. These are numbers from this program. Okay? So I hope this is helpful. If you guys need help understanding how to size, like I said, I'm not just, like dangling this in front of you guys and be like, haha, this could be you, but you don't know how to do it. Haha. Ask. Say, Ryan, I don't know how to size. How do you size accounts? I'm stuck with I need a little bit help with trading futures. How do I scale that? Or how do I calculate that risk? Ask. It's what we're here for, right? So this is a visualization of a very, very realistic outline for what becoming a successful trader looks like, okay? And of course, this was overly simplified, but to be honest, that's kind of what this program does. Like I said, you cut out 75% of the work. You guys join the calls, you trade the AIO, you guys cut out 2 or 3 years of the process that I had to go through, and you just get to bang, you get to knock this out, and you get to move on to this, and you get to move on to this, right? So I want you to look at that, digest it, maybe a little mindset shift, and there we go. All right. So again, not a lot going on NQ. There's no divergences, so you guys know I look for key level SMT every day. No divergence at these levels. All liquidity. We're kind of in a tight range here. Yeah, in terms of like technical analysis for the day, pretty much all our targets are hit for the morning. What I do for those of you looking to trade through, past 10, look for the reaction off of this fair value gap when you put it in. Use it as a target, or so use it as a target, or use it as an area to react off of to the AM session low. I'm gonna record it for VIP students, Tisha, but how do we feel? How do we feel? Is that helpful? Is it intimidating? I feel like this should be very helpful and very, again, realistic into what your journeys can look like. Keith, I'm gonna record a video for the VIP program. So I'll break this down again. It'll be a little bit more articulate. This is kind of all over the place, but um, this isn't hard to achieve. All right, guys. So tomorrow I'm not going to be trading. So I'm going to be diving into prop firms, differences in prop firms. What are the pros and cons? What's the payout processes for these firms? What does that look like? Right? But yeah, that's what I got for you guys today. Why you not trading tomorrow? Because there's NFP, ADP. Look at the news tomorrow. It's absolutely fried. Cost firms is what we're talking about. Even look at the return on a 1.5K payout. Okay, let's put this into perspective. It'll be a little introduction for tomorrow, okay? So before I traded on this starter plan on my funded futures, I got it like last year in December, and it was quite literally, I think it was 65 bucks or it was like 78 bucks or something. All in. I didn't pay an activation fee. I think it was like 1.2, 1.3K. I'm pretty sure it's 1.2. If you're trading personal capital, you can't do anything with $78. They do it intentionally, right? It's not every these guys make money off you failing. Keep that in mind. Is that they do this because they want you to treat it that way. They want you to treat it like it's something cheap that you can continue to blow over and over until it adds up. And they want you to chase large amounts with these small firms. Realize what you're working with. You're working with $78 that's technically turned into $2,000 of max drawdown. Don't treat these like toys. Take it seriously. Don't just spam max position executions, right? We'll break experience with them, but yeah, I also have like affiliate codes and stuff. I'm working to get an affiliate with Alpha, I think, so I know here soon, hopefully. But if any of you guys want the Apex one, I DM me, or you can tag me in the AIO chat, and you can purchase an Apex account. I think they're like 20 bucks. But yeah, let's take a look at NQ again here. One last recap for what I want for you guys to look for executions past 10 if you're choosing to. Once the 11 a.m. candle opens, you're going to have two solidified draws on liquidity. You're going to have the AM session high and you're going to have the AM session low. Pretty much going to be a new internal range. What you can do from that is you can either, since we're very overextended to the downside, is that you can wait for price to sweep out the AM session low and then target this hourly gap as a rebound. Since we're bearish, you can wait for price to tap this hourly gap first and then target lower for that AM session to continue. So you can either trade the rebalance or the continuation, right? So there we go. That's what I got for you guys today. Tomorrow we're going to cover more specifics of prop firms. And then Wednesday, obviously, hopefully we'll get a little bit of some better conditions. But even like 2 weeks into December, I'm personally up a little over 3R, right? So I'm not itching. My payout days, I need a couple more to secure a payout since my last one. So that's another rule I'll cover tomorrow. But P&L wise, killing it, right? Very, very realistic, just off of a couple trades. Keep that in the back of your minds. Realize we don't gotta chase. We can attract. We can let it come to us. Um, yeah. So that's what I have for you guys today. I don't think there's any AIO announcements. I know Sal was a little bit under the weather, so he changed the call. So hopefully you all looked out for that in the AIO chat. Uh, yeah, I think he changed it. But yeah, that's what I got for you guys. At 11, you're looking for the gap, right? So you'll have the AM session low, AM session high, and you'll have the gap. You can either wait for a sweep of the AM low to target the gap or for the rebalance, pretty much just trading the range. All right, guys. So that's going to do it for today's call. I hope you all took value out of it because it's honestly, if you don't understand what we just talked about, these AM session executions aren't going to do much for you. Pair these two things together, and you're going to be very, very well off. All right. So thank you all for your time. Happy Monday. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your days. Yeah. And we'll continue to hopefully kill it for the rest of this week. Happy with how December's going so far. A little bit better than last year's. All right, guys. I'll catch you all tomorrow. Take care, everybody.